E360 TV proudly presents messages of inspirational stories. Live streaming now to millions of devices, including Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, Android TV, YouTube Live, Facebook Live, with your host, Donna and Jim, producer and host, Jim Grant, producer and host, along with Michaela Vidal, administrator and host, and Gaia Ginwa Balconi Wada, editor-in-chief.
Welcome to the Messages of Inspirational Stories, and happy Friday, everybody.
Yeah, you bet. Today's a good day for a Friday, isn't it? It's the best day of the week. Yeah, a lot of people live for Friday. But you know, every day should be a good day for you. It really should, whether it's Monday, Tuesday, or what they call Hump Day Wednesday.
Yep.
And I used to tease people because I was born at 8:06 on a Friday night. And I used to tease people, and some people thought I was serious. I said, I actually, for the longest time, thought I was born just for the weekend. And there was some people thought I was serious about that. I mean, I was, like my mother used to say, it's a good thing the good Lord gave you a sense of humor. Otherwise, you wouldn't have any sense at all. But Donna, I tell you what, today is the 17th of June, and oh my goodness. Today, this is a job when it gets done properly, nobody cares. But when the job does not get done properly, everybody hollers. And that is Global Garbage Man Day.
Yes.
I think about that. You know, the garbage guys, they got to work around all that stink.
All that,
all that filth. Because, you know, us humans, we're not notoriously clean with our garbage. But the fact of it is, they do a job that really is kind of like a thankless job, and they don't really get any kind of appreciation. People at times of the year, certain times of the year, like in the Christmas time or whatever, they'll remember their, post person, the person who drops off the mail and that sort of thing. But, imagine giving a thank you to the garbage people who come by your place and pick up your garbage and haul your trash off.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I wouldn't want that job for anything.
Well, I so appreciate that they do it.
Mm-hmm.
Because, we have so many jobs out there that just need to be done.
Yes.
And I really appreciate how much they work.
Mm-hmm.
But let's go on to the next one, which I think is amazing. And I know one of your favorites, Jim. It's Apple Strudel Day. Jim loves food.
Oh, I mean to tell you. Yeah, mother spoiled me at an early age by giving me good food.
Right.
And I think I got a little bit of a connection problem here. I don't know. I may have to switch over and reconnect. But if I do, I will. But anyway, National Apple Strudel Day. Oh, can you imagine?
Yum.
Yeah. In the morning with a cup of coffee and heating one of those up.
Or at night with a cup of coffee or a glass of milk. I mean, I'm just down for it anytime. Oh,
yeah. Or middle of the day. I mean, just kind of like the old saying, roll your own, right? But, it's just wonderful that we recognize that. Also, today is a day that's recognized as the National Eat Your Vegetables Day.
Yes.
And vegetables are very good for us. And I think yesterday was the, they had something on for yesterday about eating your vegetables or something when there was a day before I forget. Yeah. Anyway, in case you didn't get your vegetables yesterday, you can get them today, okay?
Right. Today's the day.
Yep. It'll be a test afterwards. And this is one shoe I know a lot of people wear. The only time I wore them when I was in the military, going into the shower, and that's flip-flops.
Okay. I confess, I adore them.
Mm-hmm. Some people do.
Mm-hmm. I adore them. I just got a new pair. But I tell you what's funny is, you know, we don't think about it so much. And when we're in our younger years, you know, our 20s and whatnot, we kind of buy what's cute, but we don't worry. It doesn't have to be expensive, right? Oh,
Mhm.
they're flat,
Mhm.
doesn't matter.
Mhm.
As I've gotten older, I've gotten a little pickier and I need a lot of cushion and a lot of support, you know,
Mhm.
arch support. And so when you
Mhm.
think about it, our feet do so much work for our body,
Oh yeah.
right? So
That-
we need to take care of our feet. And it's just, I'm just going to say it is my suggestion, no matter your age, invest in a good pair of shoes.
oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I spent a fortune on these, but they last a long time. So if, you know, if I get 2, 3 years out of them, it's money
Mhm.
well spent.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And what's unique about shoes, there are certain shoes that I like, you know, especially in the what I call sneakers.
Hmm.
And when I find something that I like, it's comfortable, I will buy two pair of them, sometimes three. And the reason why, they're not going to go out of style. I mean, you know,
Right.
they're, you know, not really.
No.
But if you rotate those shoes, you know, if you're going to wear them every day, wear this pair one day, second pair the second day, and
Or go
the third day.
weekly or something.
Rotate them every other day because they last all much longer than if you just wore them one pair at a time till you wore
Right.
them out. There's something about that. I don't know what it is, but it does. And it's really important because when it comes to your feet, if your feet hurt, you know your feet are very important. If they hurt or if they're cold, you hurt all over and you are cold all over.
Hmm.
And I've been very fortunate. I've never suffered from foot pain or anything like that, but I have know what it's like to have ice cold feet, and that will make you miserable.
Yeah, my husband knows that uh, I don't like to be cold.
Hmm.
I don't like my feet cold. I can't handle my hands cold. And part of that is, of course, because I have so much arthritis in my body.
Hmm.
And once it takes hold and gets
Mm.
deep in the bones, it does not like to leave.
Oh yeah, that's because you're so sweet. It don't want to leave you. That's what it is.
Well, I think it's mean.
I hear you. I hear you.
So,
And
you know,
it,
I'm
go ahead.
sorry.
Hmm.
Well, we just covered so many people
Hmm.
this week, and it has been exciting.
Hmm.
I mean, Jim, it has been an amazing journey learning about all these people
Oh
inventing
yeah.
stuff and how, you know, I'm going to say probably 99% of it we still use today.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Or a
So,
variation thereof. Yeah.
yeah, so
Mhm.
let's talk about this gentleman for a moment.
Okay.
1964 to 19, I'm sorry, 1864 to 1943.
Okay.
George Washington Carver.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Hmm.
So he is had invented peanut butter. His many achievements didn't actually include that popular product. Instead, he gave the world the concept of crop rotation. His methods were so successful that they led to an abundance of peanuts, soybeans, sweet potatoes. And he spent much of his life coming up with new uses for them.
Hmm.
I mean, oh my goodness. So, you know, I I know you do, Jim. You grew up on a farm, and I
Hmm.
come from that kind of people. Crop rotation is super important.
Yes. Yes, it
You
is.
have to rest that crop because if you keep replanting the same ones, it takes all the minerals out of the soil. And then
Hmm.
after a while, it will completely deplete the soil. And
Hmm.
so, you know, sometimes depending on the crop, you can go usually a couple years and then you know, I know in Kansas, I was always amazed when I lived there. Um, they'd burn down the milo stems or the corn and
Hmm.
put those nutrients and then churn it up
Oh
and
yeah.
then put it right back into the ground because those nutrients are amazing for the soil.
Hmm. You're absolutely correct because in the fall of the year we used to always turn the crops over with and we used the plow was an Oliver plow, big two had these big two shovel type plows that just rolled everything over and buried it,
Hmm.
and that returned a lot of the minerals and stuff back into the ground and help replenish the earth, because the earth is the only thing that cannot replenish its minerals naturally once they're
Right.
gone.
Right.
And yeah, it's that peanut butter. Oh yeah, I mean that was think of all the peanut butter and jelly sandwiches I ate as a kid.
Right.
Still like that combo.
He was a doctor, Dr. Carver,
Mhm.
and he achieved through this innovative series of well, let me go back. I apologize. Let me go back.
Okay.
Unlike other he was a botanist and a agricultural teacher.
Mhm.
And so unlike other agricultural researchers of his time, Dr. Carver saw the need to devise practical farming methods for this kind of farmer. So he was talking about everyday people. He wanted to coax them away from cotton to such soil enhancing, protein rich crops as soybeans and peanuts, and teach them self sufficiency and conservation. He achieved this through an innovative series of free, simply written brochures that included information on crops, cultivation techniques, and recipes for nutritious meals. He also urged the farmers to submit samples of their soil and water for analysis, and taught them livestock care and food preservation techniques. Now, talk about ahead of the game.
Mm.
Wow. That is to me just amazing.
It really is. And it just goes to show you, when you think these people were not like kids today. Kids today are being told what to think. And like some of the tests, have you seen some of the tests like from 1850, a sixth grade test?
Right.
Oh man, that will give me a brain cramp, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know about you, but I'm talking. It's kind of like a college course today.
Mm-hmm.
But back then, the young people were taught to think for themselves, to figure things out. And because a lot of times they didn't have no internet or anything like that. They had to rely on their own laurels and, the barter system, helping one another and things of that nature. Yeah. One of the individuals I'd like to mention today is Thomas Jefferson. What an interesting, colorful individual. We know that he was the father of the Declaration of Independence. He wrote most of it. And he was a staunch believer in financial freedom. He didn't believe in banks loaning out a lot of money or anything like that, because he saw in the bigger picture how people could become enslaved to debt. Because a lot of people today, they just work and they're just trading dollars, just paying their credit card bills and rent and all that. He was very much against that. And even though he owned about 600 slaves, he was very kind to his slaves, because that was the way the custom was in that day and time. It's the way society was. But he would not work his slaves on Sunday. And he would actually buy slaves to reunite them with their families. He was a very humane man in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
And so, because whenever the slaves were freed, the carpetbaggers from the North and the lack of government, how can I say this, reconstruction of their lives did not happen, and they became sharecroppers, a lot of them.
Right.
I grew up knowing some folks that were poor that were sharecroppers, and it just goes to show you how far he was advanced 200 years before. And he was really an innovator and a thinker, and he was a tremendous writer. He was a tremendous humanitarian. He's a person that, with your child or your grandchildren, you could use Thomas Jefferson as an example of how to treat people that's less fortunate than you.
Mm-hmm.
He's a great example about that, because what he did at the time, not working slaves on Sunday, was frowned on.
Right.
Because everybody else worked them 7 days a week like they were animals. And to be able to go out and spend money he didn't need to buy slaves, to reunite them with their family, was very humane.
Mm-hmm.
And so he set a standard in that regard. So, of course, he wrote a lot of books and stuff, and he just really was a very instrumental man. He knew the importance of why we needed a republic and not a democracy. A lot of people think the U.S. is a democracy. It isn't. It's actually a republic, because under a democracy, the majority rules, and that sounds good. But what if the majority of your neighbors around you rule that they don't like you, your kids, or your barking dog, and they vote that you need to sell your property and, move? Well, if the majority rules, you'd have to do that. The same is true back in the Old West when they had the vigilantes. The vigilantes worked on a democracy type of thing. We're all in favor of hanging this person. And the sheriff would say, no, this person has rights under the republic. And I'll finish up my history lesson here, my government lesson, but the word democracy does not appear one time in the Bill of Rights or the Constitution of the United States or any of the Federalist Papers, the original papers, nor does it appear one time in any of the 50 state constitutions. They're all republics, which means we the people, and the way it should be. And that is based on we're all created equal. We all have a right to live our life. And that flows into what we've said many times here on this show, and I'll say it again, is that you have the right to live your life and live it with love and abundance and have joy and peace and quiet in your heart. You are entitled to that.
Absolutely.
And all of that falls together in the big picture. And this is not about Republican or Democrat. They're in a separate category all by themselves, I'll say.
Right.
And I'll just leave it then. I'm a Vietnam veteran, and I don't trust any of them. I can say that honestly, okay? And I don't wish them any harm or anything like that. I hope they all, get smart and, but anyway, bless them and let them go.
Right.
Right. But, when it comes to leaders, whether you're the leader in your community, a leader in your house, a good friend, we all have leadership qualities.
Right.
We really, truly do. And we're to use those qualities. And there's one thing I want to just pop in here and say. Everybody has a book within them.
Oh, absolutely.
You may think, Jim, you're nuttier than a fruitcake. There's no way I could write a book. Well, maybe not out of the gate. But look at all the people who write stories about their lives. This is what happened to me, and about it. I'm on vacation here, whatever, on Facebook. Start out with short stories about your life, or things that you know, or things that you've learned along the way. You know, and just share that with others, because somebody's going to appreciate your wisdom and your knowledge, plus your insight on stuff. Because if 3 people see an accident, all 3 of us going to have a different view of what happened.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And if nothing else, and this is what I would like to encourage.
Okay.
If nothing else, my children are all grown now. So for me to go back, I can, and I have started. It's a little harder. It is my suggestion that everybody out there with babies start writing a letter to each of them once a year, whatever that date is for you, whether it's January, the end of the year, whatever. Write a letter of things that have happened in the family, so that you have a record.
Mm-hmm.
You have a record. That is a legacy book to your children.
Oh, yeah.
It is a legacy book to your children.
And be sure and share the story about your parents, things that you remember about what they said, and your grandparents, because that.
And what happened when your children were born? How were your parents? They were this age. They lived where, and give the details, so it gives a timeline story of the legacy of your life for your babies.
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea, Donna, because, let them know what grandpa would not eat for breakfast or something.
Well, I can give you, just a real quick. I did not like my children having sugar. So they got Cheerios, and we didn't have a ton of cereal, but when they did, they'd have Cheerios or Rice Krispies, and I would never put sugar on it, right? So we came to Arizona to visit, and gosh, I want to say Gaia was a baby. And so my oldest, Josh, he's almost 2 years older than Gaia. Sitting down and I was still asleep or in the shower or something. And Josh got up early, and Mom had asked me ahead of time before we came, what kind of cereal will the kids eat? And I said, I'll just get Cheerios. They love them. I come down the hall, and Josh and Papa are having breakfast, right?
Mhm.
And I look over, and Josh is just grinning from ear to ear. I said, what's going on, baby? You look super happy. And man, he's shoveling those Cheerios in his mouth about as fast as his little hand will let him. And he says, Papa put sugar on them, Mom.
Like we just got promoted here, you know.
I went, Dad, you did what?
Yeah. One of the things I like to do whenever I had cereal or, with oatmeal or something like that, I got to have walnuts in it. I love walnuts in my oatmeal, and I like to put a little honey on there, and
Yeah.
that's about as much as I sweeten it, very little, but, because oatmeal is so good for your heart. Oh, goodness, it really is. And, I know one thing you wanted to talk about, and that was the Wright brothers, because they were all right and not wrong, huh?
Absolutely. I just think they are fascinating. So they were actually, we know that the Kitty Hawk in North Carolina, right?
Oh, yeah.
For that. But they are actually not from North Carolina.
No.
They're from Dayton, Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
Go Bucks. So I know I'm a big Buckeye fan. In fact, I'm a little rabid about the Buckeyes football. But anyway, so they were not airplane guys.
No, not at all.
No, they were bicycle guys.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they were just super, super smart. And we watched a show about them the other night, and it was truly amazing because it is on record where somebody said they had the bicycle shop and they opened it up, and it was quite successful, and they did an amazing job. But that was what funded them for their flying. Mm-hmm. And somebody said, well, why do you do it? And they said, because we're curious. We want to know how it works. So what they did in their downtime is they would go out and study every bird that flew. Mm-hmm. They would check out books on them, whatever books there were out there. They would get, well, they didn't check them out, but they got books on them. They would look and try and figure out how their feathers worked that made them be able to fly. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't just like it was, well, one day we just put this together and it worked and boom, we're flying now. They studied everything about it. It is truly an amazing story.
Mm-hmm. It really is. And how they developed what's called wing warping.
Right.
And they used inner tubes for that to be able to pull on the wings. Same principle they use now when people use hang gliders, the way they can glide those things.
Right.
Because I remember back when I first went into service, the parachute jumpers, it was just like what was a mushroom, big round thing. And I'd watch those guys land there when I was at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, the 82nd Airborne. And I mean, they'd have to hit, bounce, and roll, do a tuck and roll kind of a deal. But now you watch these gliders come in, and these people just kind of like, they're still on their feet and maybe run a little bit and they slow down, and it's just, effortlessly. But the way they pull those cords, and I'm not a glider guy or anything like that, but the way they can pull the cables and maneuver the wings, that was actually invented with Orville and Wilbur Wright.
Right.
It sure was. And
in 1903, they built an airplane called the Wright Flyer 1, which featured wooden propellers, and the men had designed and carved themselves. And the plane also had a gasoline engine.
Talk about innovation.
Yes.
And how would they have the knowledge to create a wooden propeller? Think about that.
Right.
They had to
And
understand dynamics, the flow of the air, and all that. Oh,
exactly. And that's somehow how they were when they were studying birds, all different kinds of birds, not just like one kind, but all different
mhm,
kinds of birds, and how their wings worked to get air.
mhm.
It that blew me away right there.
Yeah.
That totally blew me away.
Mm.
The studying, I mean, they spent extra money getting these books and trying to understand the dynamic. And
Mhm.
then they would sketch bird feathers and see how they could make that work and incorporate it into flying.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. They sure could.
Hmm.
And they were very ingenious like that. And you know good and well, they had to have heard that old saying, well, can't you just imagine some old stick in the mud guy saying, well, if man was supposed to fly, God
He
would
did.
have gave him wings or something like
Right.
that. And you know they heard that. They had to. But did that stop them? No. And thank goodness, because back before automobiles became popular, if you rode 30 to 35 miles on a horse in one day, you were ready for bed.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's a lot of work.
Yes.
Look at the Pony Express riders. I mean, of course, they had to change horses every 10 miles. They rode them so hard and so
Right.
fast.
They wrote them full out gallop.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
But I
Full
mean,
out.
but see, like when you're going 30, 35 miles, most of the average, I think the average was around 20 something miles a day that you would travel on horseback because there weren't roads.
Right.
You're crossing, going through woods, you're crossing creeks and whatnot and going up and down ravines and stuff. I mean, it was tough.
Hmm.
And if your horse fell and broke a leg, you were in trouble.
Right. So in 1903, after traveling 120 feet before it landed,
Mhm.
and the plane worked, they kept working on it and working on it to improve it. Now here's what I just love this.
Okay.
After their success in North Carolina,
Mhm.
the Wright brothers continued to travel around the world, perfecting their craft
Mhm.
and modifying their designs.
Mhm.
But they did so much more, kicking off the era of modern aviation and
Mhm.
inspiring future adventures. Decades following Kitty Hawk were filled with accomplishments in aviation, including the first solo flight across the Atlantic Ocean on the
Mhm.
first passenger flight.
Wow.
And of course, flight didn't just stay in this world. A little over 65 years after the Wrights' famous first flight,
Mhm.
astronauts Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin walked on the moon.
Mm. 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 Mm.
So we owe them being able to go to the moon
Yeah,
because
exactly.
they made it possible.
And modern day, what was Kitty Hawk then is Kill Devil Hills now in North Carolina. And they went there because of the ocean breezes coming off the ocean, and
And the
that's what.
soft sand
Yes, yeah, we need plenty of soft sand because what goes up is going to come down.
must come down.
We just don't, we're not going to do this in Boulder, Colorado.
Right? Or over the Grand Canyon.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. That's long before Evil Knievel came up, and he did a lot of stunts and stuff like that. I remember the stunt when he tried to jump the Snake River Canyon.
Hmm.
That
Hmm.
was in the 70s, I think.
Yeah, it was in the 70s. And Eva Knievel is from Butte, Montana.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and
He's a Montana boy.
oh yeah, I mean he was. Some of the things he did with a motorcycle, my goodness gracious, bless his heart.
Right?
But another great person I think you wanted to talk about was Grace Brewster Mary Hopper. Oh my goodness. She was born December the 9th, 1906. She died
Hmm.
January the 1st, 1992. Ladies and gentlemen, this lady was a very accomplished American computer scientist. She was a member of the United States Navy. She was a rear admiral, excuse me, and one of the first programmers of the Harvard Mark I computer. She was a
Hmm.
pioneer of computer programming who invented one of the first linkers. And COBOL, common business language. I mean, this lady was just light years ahead of everybody else. And her being a woman, Donna, you can imagine some of the
setback, shall we say?
Stupidity. I'll say it. Stupidity from man. I can get away with that because we've earned our stripes in being. No, but seriously, I mean, you can imagine what she ran up against.
Oh, yeah.
And to put salt on the wound, she embarrassed a lot of them.
She did.
She
Because
really did.
they're like, well, that can't work. And
Yeah.
most of the time, unfortunately, back then,
Mhm.
especially back then, it wasn't because maybe it would work or not. It was more about their ego.
Mhm. Right.
Well, I didn't think of it, so it can't be
Mhm.
any good.
Yeah. Yeah, because she was the one invented the first linkers. And links, of
Yes.
course, ladies and gentlemen, is a computer system program that takes one or more object files and combines them into a single executable file or a library file as we know it.
Right.
I mean, she had that vision. She saw the vision of taking a computer and doing digitally, get my tongue going here, the same kind of way we have files in a file cabinet.
Right.
That was how smart she was and how much of a vision she is. So, you young ladies out there who have young girls, grandkids, even males or females for that matter, but especially young girls, this lady here, Grace Brewster Mary Hopper, she is a say she's a pioneer. She's an icon.
Right.
She really is of the way that she persevered
Well,
in a
it's also, I'm
in,
sorry, go ahead.
in a male world where
Mhm.
she was a female and she brought brains, which was a disconnect in the male world in that day and time.
Absolutely.
This
You
is
know,
before women got the right to vote now.
In 1966, she retired from the naval. I'm going to get my mouth working. Naval Reserve,
Mhm.
but in 1967, they recalled her to active duty.
Mhm.
She then retired. Now she got recalled in 1967.
Mhm.
She then retired completely from the Navy in 1986.
Mm.
And went to work as a consultant for the Digital Equipment Corporation, sharing her computing experiences.
And she was born in 1906.
Right.
And so what year was that? Was that 1986?
She retired in 1986. Yes, sir.
Mm. So 6 from 86 is what?
Well, she died at age 85. So
Yeah. And 92, she was 85 years of age. So
yeah.
she was a senior citizen, but senior citizen did not have a grip on her.
No, absolutely
Yeah, she
not.
was 80 years of age when that happened in 86 because she
And it
was
was
born in
kind
1906.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that, the U.S. Navy guided missile destroyer, the USS Hopper,
Mhm.
was named for her.
Yes, yes.
Mhm.
That's right. I'd forgotten about that. Thank you.
Right? And
Yeah.
during her lifetime, she was awarded 40 honorary degrees from universities across the world.
Mhm.
A college at Yale University was renamed in her honor. In 1991, she received the National Medal of Technology.
Mhm.
And on November 22nd, 2016, she was posthumously awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom by President Barack Obama.
Mm. What's amazing too about her, ladies and gentlemen, she earned a PhD in mathematics from Yale University.
Yes, she did.
And she was a professor of mathematics at Vassar College. And she attempted to join or to enlist in the Navy during World War II, but she was rejected because she was 34 years of age. And she went ahead then, that's how she joined the Navy Reserves.
Right.
And she began her computing career in 1944 when she worked on the Harvard Mark I team. It was led by Howard Aiken. And then in 1949, she joined the Eckert Mauchly Computer Corporation. And we don't normally think of computers being around, in the 40s, but she was
But they
in
were.
on the ground floor. She was very
Mhm.
instrumental, and she was her creations, inventions just, inspired and got improved like everything else. Like Henry Ford made the Model T. Well, the cars today don't, they still got four wheels, but they're so much more advanced than the Model T. They really are.
Right.
That's exactly what happened in her career.
And look at it today. Coding today in the computer world is huge.
Oh gosh, yes.
It's absolutely huge. Building a website, you have to know how to code, right? So we owe huge thanks to her. I mean, where would we be without that?
Yeah. I mean, my daughter started her career in the medical field with being a medical coder.
Right.
Think about that. I mean, it's just amazing.
Right.
And one of the
Gaia went to
wonderful
school for
individuals.
coding.
Did
She
she?
just graduated
Oh,
for
wow.
computer coding.
Yeah. Well, she's got that laser focused ability, and she is really a sharp young lady.
Yes, she is.
And she's our editor in chief who works with us. And Donna, one of the individuals who had so much talent, so wonder if he even had time to sleep. That's Leonardo da Vinci.
Oh, Lord.
We would be here for goodness hours discussing him. But he was known for
Absolutely.
painting the Mona Lisa.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people don't know that he was the one in his mind that painted the painting that everybody's familiar with, known as the Last Supper.
Right.
But some of his inventions, he had such an active brain. I don't know how the man, all the things that he drew, all the things that he saw, my goodness. I mean,
He saw them in a way. The only way I can describe it is we can maybe, so myself, all right, maybe I can see in 4 or 5 dimensions. He saw it in like 50 or 100.
Oh, yeah. He visualized how man could walk on water. He drew drawings of this. And he had projects of walking on water, a parabolic compass. You're going to love this. An aerial screw, he called it, which grew into and become the helicopter.
Right.
I mean, goodness gracious. And the way,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
How he sketched and he created a life belt, to be able to save people, pull them up, bridges, parachutes, my goodness gracious. An organ gun. He created an organ gun. You can sit in the middle of that thing and no one could come and get you in 360 directions, because in all directions you had barrels pointing out that way.
Right. But he wasn't just known for his drawing. And this is what is so interesting. He was renowned in the fields of civil engineering, chemistry, geology, geometry, hydrodynamics, mathematics, mechanical engineering, optics, physics, zoology. Holy cow. I mean, any one of those that stands in amazing brain power, if you will, on its own merit. But then you put them all together, that's just huge.
And he actually had a what's called a Codex Forester. He actually discussed and drew plans for hydraulics in engineering. I mean, the guy just had no limitations at all.
And think about that, from 1452 to 1519. He was so far ahead of the time, it's not even funny.
Yeah. And he was even, he understood how you can move and the raising of water would create perpetual motion. And a lot of people, even today, think perpetual motion cannot be done. But yet he figured it out, and he had the understanding of how it could be done. And the list just goes on and on and on. My goodness. He's known for geometry, ballistics, botany. He had a notebook on military engineering. Goodness, 3 pocket notebooks on geometry, 2 on agricultural, Latin, perspective, and portion for painters. I mean, normally a person has one specific gift or one specific field that they're known for. He was he was a walking encyclopedia. I'm talking about the whole set.
Right. And again, he had such a curiosity,
Yeah.
right? His curiosity was such. In fact, it says here, as a scientist, Leonardo had no formal education in Latin and mathematics and did not attend a university. Because of these factors, his scientific studies were largely ignored by other scholars. Leonardo's approach to science was one of intense observation and detailed recording. His tools of investigation began being almost exclusively his eyes. His journals gave insight into his investigative process. I mean, there are pictures that he's done with what he found about the human arm.
Oh, yeah.
From the shoulder to the hands. I mean,
this
think
before
about
X-rays.
it. Yeah. Yeah. Talk about amazing.
You know, and talking about people that had vision and all that, there was a gentleman that was alive in between the Old and the New Testament, about 400 years. They're referred to as the silent years, but they weren't silent at all. There was a lot going on in between the Old Testament and the New Testament. And you got a little rattle there, huh?
Yeah. Sorry, I was tangled.
That's okay. But Alexander the Great was known. He was a conqueror. Everything he did was at one speed, folks, wide open.
Right.
He drank hard. He fought hard. He led armies, and he believed that the Greek culture, along with the Jewish religion, was the complete answer to building a society. Alexandria, everywhere he went, he named towns after himself or someone close to him. But my point being, some of the tactics that he used, now he just had horses.
Right.
He didn't have anything mechanical at all. But the way he can move a group of people from point A to point B, Patton was known for this in World War II with tanks, but the way he can move people from point A to point B in a short period of time was shocking.
Right.
Some of his military tactics are still taught in the military academies today with all our technique.
The war colleges, absolutely.
Yes. That's how brilliant he was. I mean, he died when he was about 33 or something like that. He died young. And there's debate on what killed him, whether he was poisoned or drank himself to death or whatever. But everything that he did, it was wide open. And I forget who it was, but there was one of the prophets who told him about the he-goat predicted in the book of Daniel, and how the he-goat would be kind to the Jewish people. And because of that, he automatically had a liking to this priest who was sharing it with them. He treated them with kindness. And it was recorded by Daniel that if he did that, he would, excel. And that's exactly what he did. He encouraged the Jews to dress like Greeks. And he was a student of Aristotle, I think it was, one of the great philosophers. Yeah.
Aristotle's another one we could go on a whole week or the whole year about.
Yeah. And but he encouraged, and back during that time, the traditional Jews rejected that. It's a little bit of a history lesson here. I apologize. But the traditional Jews, they viewed the Jews who accepted the Greek culture, because it was just like America. It's a good way to put it. America is known as the land of milk and honey, because back in the 50s, we saw after World War II, people were tired of doom and gloom. They wanted to expand. Suburbia expanded. In the 50s, it was a treat to go down. And some of you folks that's up there, baby boomers, know what a treat was to go down to the local car dealership and see the new models. Because they're not like today. They're just, they all look the same,
Right.
But it was very creative in that time. But my point being, and going on this long thing here, was that the Jews who accepted Hellenism, they enjoyed trade, they enjoyed the milk and honey of the land. And the traditional Jews who thought that that was a threat to them, they rejected them, and they became the Pharisees. that's how they came into play, because in the Old Testament, those of you that's familiar with the scripture, the Bible, the Pharisees, the Sadducees, and the Sanhedrin, who was a group of 70 individuals from the Sadducees and the Pharisees that made up the council, they weren't even mentioned one time. But yet when Jesus comes on, according to Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, beginning of the New Testament, they were the establishment. Mm-hmm. So how'd they come into power? That's how they came into power. And that's your biblical history lesson for the day. But my point being, with Alexander the Great, he was such a innovator when it came to conquering people. Mm-hmm. And it's been said, Josephus wrote a lot about him. It's been said about him that his attitude was surrender or die. There was no in between. If you surrender, you'll be treated well. And he did treat people well.
Right.
But if you were an enemy, you're going down.
Right. But even if I recall right, because my husband and I watch a ton of the History Channel. Mm-hmm. So we love those shows. And there was a big series on about the Bible and how everything, worked. Flowed. And if I recall right, even though he was known as a very tough person to deal with, were you his enemy? He also treated his enemies with respect.
Yes, he did.
And he didn't just, well, look at me and look at you. Mm-hmm. He was very respectful of his enemies and what they put him through in order for, that time frame, of conquering what have you.
Absolutely. He respected them. And if they were, willing to follow his lead, you might say, he was very, he was not a brutal guy. He wasn't like Genghis Khan.
No, he didn't kill just to kill.
No, he sure didn't.
Let's put it that way. He didn't kill just to kill. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and actually, I think it was, if I remember correctly, there's about 20 cities that bore his name as Alexandria. Like Alexandria in Egypt is how it got its name. And he was just an individual that his ability to motivate people, his ability to get people from point A to point B. See, motivating people, that's something that's physical and that will never go away. And that's one of the things what they teach up there in the at West Point, the military academies and all that. Because he was a leader of men. The men respected him.
Right.
Even though he was a hard charger, but he led by example.
Right. He didn't shirk from anything.
Not at all.
If there was, a conquering to happen, he was leading
He led the charge.
He led the charge. He didn't hide in the back and say, go get him.
Or set up on a hill and saw that.
Right.
Everything going okay down there, guys.
Right.
You need any help?
Right.
Okay, you guys go over there and help him.
He was about as hands-on could get.
Oh yeah, he really was. He was quite a guy, and I mean, he just unfortunately he died young, and like I say, there's debate over it whether he was poisoned or whether or not he was whether he is just had a pickled liver or what, because he did drink very heavily. There's no question about that.
Well, and also there was and you could probably help me with the time frame.
Okay.
But we were watching a show, and my husband was telling me a lot of these people in that time frame who got poisoned were poisoned because they drank and ate out of a lead-based utensils, lead-based cups, bowls, etc. And so the lead would, of course, leach. And they got lead poisoning, and that's how a lot of these people died.
Yeah, it sure was. You're
Not
exactly
all of
right
them,
on
but
that.
a lot of them.
Oh yeah, you're exactly right on that. And because he was getting weak, and that's a sign of lead poisoning and all that. And it's just amazing how people lived back then, and reading about that and the way people lived even 100 years ago and in the past. I am so glad I was born when I was.
I
'Cause
can remember
I think I've been a pitiful pilgrim.
I can remember my mother telling me that my uncle Jack was he's my great uncle,
Mhm,
and he was a logger in Montana,
mhm,
and he'd do anything for my
mhm,
mom's homemade biscuits.
mhm.
And he'd say, "Breen," he'd come over, he'd say, "Sure would love some of your biscuits." And mom look at him, smile, say, "All right, but I got to get this laundry hung up." Now we're talking the dead of winter in Montana.
Ooh.
Uh huh.
Take your clothes out there, hang them on the clothesline. They're automatically starched.
Uh huh. He said, "Well, I'll tell you what, Reen, because my mom had to learn to cook, at a real young age." And he
Mhm.
said, "I'll go hang them up if you start those biscuits."
Yeah. There you go. There you go.
Talk
Just
about
how bad,
barter power,
yeah, just how bad you want some biscuits, boy? Will you hang
right?
up the, this is kind of an interesting thing too, and this is a little bit about technology and things of this nature. After Henry Ford and the Ford Motor Company was established, and people started to buy cars and able to travel, we don't normally think about it, but people that traveled across country, how did they get there in a car?
Mm,
They would stop at farms. This was a custom of the day. They would
yep.
stop at farms because farmers would make alcohol, and it wasn't just
No
for
moonshine.
drinking. It was moonshine, yes, corn liquor, but it wasn't just for drinking purposes. Sure, they partook of their own plant or their own product, but it was also used for many different things on the farm. And
Right.
so they would stop at farmhouses and they would get some of the corn liquor, and that's what the engine ran off of.
Right.
Because Henry Ford, his original idea is that he wanted his car to run off of, just plain corn liquor, alcohol, so that everybody could afford it. And the way that all came about, believe it or not, President Teddy Roosevelt shot down John D. Rockefeller because Rockefeller saw those cars and he wanted to sell gasoline. And that's how prohibition came about,
Right.
outlawing alcohol. That's
And that
exactly
didn't
it
work
all
out
comes.
too well.
You just follow the money. That's
Right.
all I'm going to say.
Well,
Well,
I can tell you for a fact that my family from Virginia moved and took their still with them. And when they
sure.
moved to Montana, of course, they set up camp.
Mhm.
And during Prohibition, they were selling to the sheriff and the mayor and because they were
Well,
known for their shine, that it
yeah,
was the best shine you could get. And if you
yeah.
wanted a good, clean shine, you
Mhm.
went to see the Fords.
Yeah, exactly. Because you got equipment you need to run, and you got, things that, you could use for, lighting and that sort of thing, kerosene. And, there was a lot of good uses for it,
Hmm. Hmm.
And then on Saturday night, when you could take a deep breath and relax.
There was another use for it.
But as soon as taxes, as soon as it got legalized to be taxed, guess what? It wasn't a problem anymore.
Right,
Imagine that.
right.
But yeah, but that's the way people got their fuel going across country because there wasn't any service stations. There wasn't no
Right.
Circle K's or no, of course, we have here in Texas, those Buc-ee's, those things. If you ever come through the Texas area or somewhere in the southeast there, I don't know how far north they are, but Buc-ee's stop in there. And I'm not getting a dime per saying this, but I'll tell you right now, you'll see 60, 70, 80 gas pumps there. And you walk into the restrooms, those restrooms are clean. They got all kind of food in there. They're not a truck stop. They do not allow 18-wheelers to stop there. But what I'm saying, I'll stop in there many times and they'll just, like at the meat counter there, they'll say, "You want to try a sample of this?" Sure,
Right.
And this one little gal was there, and I was teasing her a little bit, and I walked up and I looked at her. I said, "What's for lunch?" She started laughing at me. But they'll give you samples of the fudge they make. I mean, it's just
Yeah,
you can just
they're
walk around there.
huge.
Yeah, they're huge, but it's a very nice place to stop, and you can get good gas, and they got good prices, as good as we can get in this day and time. Let me say
Right.
that they're competitive in their gas prices. Let me say that.
Ours went up another 10 cents overnight.
Mercy.
Yeah.
Mm. So when you getting steel out of the garage?
Right? Pretty dang quick, let me tell you.
Oh my goodness. You can
Between my
easily,
car.
yeah. When you see change, rest assured one thing, just follow the money. And that's usually well, anyway, we'll leave that there. We don't want to get censored out or anything, you know.
Oh,
But
little humor is good for the soul,
oh
Jim.
yeah, especially when you laugh at the truth. But that's exactly right, you know. And I've read a lot about Teddy Roosevelt. What a great president he was. He was also he was the chief of police for the city of New York. And he was known for walking a beat at night, just checking up on his police officers. And
Nice.
he was also very much against the banking system. He was kind of like Thomas Jefferson that we mentioned earlier. And because he knew how greedy they could become.
Right.
Because money and greed, I mean,
They're
it
hand
buys
in
the
hand.
best. Yeah, the best people who are for sale, it buys them all.
Yep. It brings out the worst in the best people.
Money brings out everybody's true colors. That's the
Mhm.
principle. You can use it for good, or you either own it or it owns you.
Right?
One or the other. There's no middle
Absolutely.
ground.
Well, Jim, we are out of time.
Well, let's see, who else can we talk about that we can we better behave. It's Friday afternoon and we do not have our still going or anything. So I don't have any kind of excuse for that. But ladies and gentlemen, we've just really, and you can tell we enjoy doing this show because a lot of the information there, we want to inspire you to learn about people that are interested in the same things that you're interested in, people who have created things.
And inspire your children and
Yes,
let them
yes,
experiment and explore and
yeah,
read up, because none of us know. You have the next child of the future who's going to invent something.
amen. Amen on that. And inspire them to think for themselves,
Mhm.
put on their own thinking cap. That's so critical because that's the right. That's what everyone's entitled to make up our own minds, to think
Right.
and live free and live with love and abundance. We're entitled to that.
Right.
And if anybody tells you any difference, please stop listening to them
Right.
because they're just trying to, to poison your mind, and that you're worth so much more than that. You really are. And we got to close. We're out of time. Otherwise,
Yes, we are completely out of time.
well, we've had fun. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in. And as we wrap up this week, Donna and I hope and pray that you and your loved ones have a wonderful weekend. If you're going through some tough times, or if you've lost a loved one, or you're experiencing health issues, you're in our thoughts and prayers, because every day we pray for those that's sick and suffering and for those that's lost loved ones, because we've all been on both sides of the street of that.
Absolutely.
And we just hope and pray that you will love yourself first, then you can love others. And as Donna likes to say, give yourself
grace.
Amen. We'll see you Monday. Have a good weekend. Take care of yourself. Be good to yourself and treat yourself to your favorite dessert. You deserve it. How about that?
Perfect.